All right, let's carry on with Zero Escape, 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. We are about to receive the true ending over here. So I didn't want to do this last night because this might take a while. I think, if I recall correctly, this does take some time. So we jump down to here, outside the room. I stepped out of the captain's quarters into another hallway. The hallway stretched out in front of Junpei for a bit before turning left like a great backward L.
Right, let's go.
Junpei rounded the corner and took off down the straightaway. He ran, and ran, and ran. At the end of the hallway was a door.
That's the next door.
He made straight for it.
Wait, a piece of paper.
He was nearly halfway to it when he noticed a piece of paper in the middle of the floor. Junpei skidded to a halt. He dropped down to his hands and knees and quickly tore the paper off the floor.
Map of the ship's interior for ADAC. What's wrong?
Ace, slightly slower by virtue of his advanced age, had finally caught up to Junpei.
I found a map for this floor.
Oh my. He showed Ace what he'd snatched from the wall. He looked at it long enough to determine what it was and nodded.
I see.
With that, he began running again past Junpei.
Well, that was anticlimactic.
It was indeed.
I should keep this, though.
You should. Junpei shoved the map into his pocket and got up to follow Ace. But something stopped him.
Hey, where's Clover?
Where is Clover? He turned around. Clover was nowhere to be seen.
Damn it, what the hell is she up to?
Junpei muttered angrily under his breath and took off back the way he'd come. As he stomped around the corner, he saw her. She was standing in front of the door to the captain's quarters, her hand on the doorknob.
Clover!
Huh?
To make sure we're on the right path. Getting paranoid at this point. Okay, yeah, we're fine. As Junpei watched, she closed it gently and quietly.
What the hell are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing.
What do you mean, nothing?
Clover had unconsciously put her hands over the pockets of her jacket as if trying to hide something.
What the hell is that?
What?
You've got something in your pocket. What is it?
Oh, this? This is a note.
A note?
Yeah, I found it in the pocket of the guy with the captain's clothes. It said something about the darkness of the sinister hand or something.
The left hand.
Let me see it.
No, not right.
But Junpei wasn't going to get to see it. From the other end of the hall, he heard Ace's voice.
Hey, Junpei, Clover! What are you two doing? Hurry up!
He's getting mad.
Clover shrugged.
I'll show it to you later, all right? Come on, we gotta hurry.
Before Junpei could protest, she was gone. Around the corner and off down the long stem of the L. A note. A note. Junpei was curious, but there was something else that bothered him.
The look of that pocket. It doesn't particularly look like just a note. Jeez, what are you thinking? For crying out loud.
Junpei did his best to convince himself that it would make sense later, and he ran after Clover. Junpei pushed through the door and found himself in a large room with a large set of stairs.
Stairs. So this is where it ends up. Just like it says on the map.
Mm-hmm. It was just what he'd expected to see after reading the map. His "I see" after reading the map meant that Ace had probably realized the same thing.
Ace, did he head down?
Did he? He put his hand on the handrail to lean over and look down.
Oh, there he is.
Look, the 4 others are there too.
And not just Ace, Santa, Seven, June, and Lotus as well. I read those out of order, but oh well.
Really?
Let's join them.
Junpei and Clover glanced at each other and hurried down the stairs. They reached B deck at the same time.
Jumpy! Clover!
June's face was excited. Something had happened, that much Junpei could tell by simply looking at her.
What's up?
Given the situation, he was not inclined to be excited about sudden developments. June, however, couldn't contain herself.
We found it!
Found what?
We found it!
What did you find?
The last door! We found door 9!
Come on, just follow us. We'll explain on the way.
Okay.
Seven turned and jogged off down the stairs.
Well, if that's the case...
Wait for me.
We should get going as well.
The rest followed.
Jumpy! We finally made it!
The relief and excitement in her voice echoed what each one of them felt.
It's finally time.
Junpei wasn't quite ready to believe that they'd really done it, at least not just yet. Still, if everyone said that it was door 9, then it probably was.
We've reached the end.
He could feel his heart racing. A mixture of anticipation and fear ran through his veins. He could feel his legs shaking. He was doing his best to maintain a sense of healthy skepticism, but he couldn't deny that the prospect of escape was an exciting one.
Something's bothering me. Only 3 to 5 people can go through the numbered door. 7 of us are on our way to door 9. That means that, best case scenario, there'll be 2 of us who have to stay behind. 2 people. Is there a way?
Junpei looked over at the clock.
4:30. We've only got 90 minutes left. I've got no time to wonder about it now.
Hey, Junpei! June! What the hell are you two doing? Hurry it up!
Santa's voice jolted Junpei out of his reverie.
Let's go, Jumpy!
June took off down the stairs, jogging as quickly as she could. As a group, they piled onto the elevator and rode impatiently down to E deck. It looked familiar. There was a metal grate between the two elevators. Seven grabbed hold of it and began to
I know I
talk.
told you I'd explain it earlier, but honestly, there ain't much to explain. After we split off from you guys, the 4 of us got into the elevator on the left, and that took us to the other side of the grate. After that, we headed down another hallway. It took us toward the bow, and eventually to the number 6 that you two found earlier. We opened it and kept going. There was another locked door behind it, like usual, but this time we had to complete 2 different areas before we could unlock it. Once we were through that door, there was another hallway that went the other direction, toward the stern.
So, on your way, you found the elevator.
That's right.
So, in other words, you kinda did a lap, huh? You came from that side to this side.
Yeah.
That settled, Junpei looked around.
So, where's the number 9 door?
Over here. Follow me.
Seven began walking down the hallway that led toward the stern. Junpei and the others broke into a jog to keep up with him.
By the way,
They had been walking for a while, June in silent step with Junpei when she spoke.
you know, it's because of Santa that we're all here right now.
Huh?
That all 7 of us are going to door 9.
Really?
What?
You don't get it? Santa, 7, and Lotus. What's their digital route?
3, 10, 18, 9.
have just left me behind and kept going if they'd wanted to.
But they didn't.
Yes, because Santa wouldn't let them. He said, we can't leave June and the others behind. That's why we went looking for you guys.
And then you got on the elevator and went back to the central staircase.
That's right.
Well, I wouldn't have called that one. That Santa would be the one to stick up for you.
Junpei felt his eyebrows knit as he considered that.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I don't mean that Seven and Lotus said they wanted to leave me behind. We were just talking about it, and Santa objected to it first.
Is that so?
Junpei was about to respond when Seven suddenly stopped.
So, is this...
Yeah.
Junpei couldn't see Seven's face, but he could see him nod.
There's no other place for us to go.
Nope. Just look around. There's a big old iron wall at the end of the hallway. The other hallways on the left and right are blocked by metal grates.
I see.
It looked as though Seven was right. The door in front of them was their only choice.
Alright, let's get moving.
Pulled open the door and walked in. Junpei took a deep breath and followed. It appeared they'd been telling the truth.
No way.
First thing Junpei saw as he entered the room was the number 9. Like the others, it was a rough thing made of red paint. The door, it decorated, sat on the back wall of a rectangular room. Junpei ran up to it.
The 9 door.
It was a large double door with powerful styling. Something about it was almost majestic, and it made the red paint look especially garish.
We're finally here.
Grabbed the handle and shook. It didn't budge, but then he hadn't really expected it to. The red was bolted to the wall next to the vacant door. It display red vacant.
No doubt about it. This is door 9. Oh, finally! This is the last.
Junpei felt a flood of emotion wash over him. He felt a chill down his back and his chest tightened, even as his blood began to boil. There was a moment of complete silence.
Look behind you.
He turned around.
Behind? What?
Junpei could scarcely believe what he saw.
Why? A door and a 9. There's another one. Hey, what the hell? What the hell is going on here?
His words came slowly and his brain struggled to understand what he'd seen. On shaky legs, he made his way to the second 9. It was a small door set parallel to the door they'd come through, but in the other corner of the room. There was no mistaking the number, and if any more proof was needed, a red was bolted to the wall near the door.
There's a red there too. That means... And of course it won't open.
It means everybody gets out. He grabbed the handle and shook the door, but not because he expected it to open, but because he had to make sure it was real.
But why? Why the hell are there 2 doors?
It was Ace who spoke first.
Do you think perhaps one is the right door and the other is the wrong one?
Lotus was skeptical.
unlikely.
What makes you say so?
Well, think about all the rooms we've been through so far. They're full of puzzles, but there are always hints about how to solve them. Pretty sure there aren't any rooms where we just had to go with our best guess and leave it to instinct to solve the puzzle. Do you really think that at the very end of the game, Zero's going to suddenly throw in something that depends entirely on luck?
Then you're saying there's some sort of hint in this room.
No, I don't think there's a hint anywhere in here. I searched it very well when I was in here before. I didn't find anything that might have been a hint, though.
Well then, that means...
Yeah, both of these are the right door. I mean, if you think about it, Zero never actually said there was only one door with a 9 on it.
It is hidden, but an exit can be found. Seek a way out. Seek a door that carries a 9. So if there are 2 number 9 doors, if we split it up, right?
That's not gonna work.
Junpei blinked and looked up over at Clover. She held out her
You've got a
hand.
notebook and a pen, right? Can I borrow them?
Yeah, here.
Slightly confused, he pulled them out and handed them to her.
Look at this.
Clover opened the notebook to a blank page and set it down on the desk. Everyone else gathered around her and watched. She wrote down a series of numbers.
You get it? The numbers on the top are all the combinations with digital roots of 9. The numbers on the bottom are the people who don't fit. There's only 8 possibilities if we split up into 2 groups of 3 or 4 people. So...
If 3 people go through the door, then 4 are left behind. If 4 go through, then 3 are left behind.
yeah.
Clover nodded, almost as if she were pleased with herself for solving a difficult math problem.
No way.
The room went very quiet. Silence lay across everyone like a thick, heavy blanket. No one spoke. Their faces were
Come
blank.
to think of it,
Desperate for something else to look at, Junpei turned his eyes to the room around
what
him.
is this room?
The walls were covered with candles. The wavering flame made the shadows of Junpei and his companions look as though they were dancing. 2 rows of wooden pews filled most of the room.
Looks like it's set up for some kind of ceremony.
It's a chapel.
But what kind?
Between them was a strip of rich, red carpet. Carpet ran straight through the room, ending at the door that pointed to the stern of the boat. The other end of the carpet.
Is that an altar?
It was a reset space set into the wall between the 2 other doors. Sitting on a raised section of the altar was a coffin. A coffin. A coffin.
A coffin? No, it couldn't
No.
possibly be.
But if it wasn't, then whose body occupied it? That was as far as Junpei wanted to pursue the line of thought. He decided not to think about the coffin for the time being. At that moment, Seven spoke. There was an edge of humor to his voice, but it was forced.
Okay, I give up. I give up. I figured if we sat around here long enough, someone would volunteer. But I guess nobody's got the guts to do it.
What are you talking about?
Junpei didn't understand, and he wasn't the only one.
What? You guys didn't figure it out yet? Fine, fine. Let me enlighten you. Clover was mostly right with her little explanation earlier, but she missed something.
Really?
She wasn't really wrong. She just... screw it. Let me just write it out. If you're trying to leave with a group of 3 and a group of 4 and get everybody out, Clover's right. But there's another way. Only one combination, though. If you split us up into groups of 3, 3, and 1, you can make this combination.
Wait, this means...
Don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to copy Ace or anything like that. Even if he hadn't been the hero back in the big hospital room, I'd still be saying the same thing.
The same thing? Are you saying?
Yeah, I am. I'll stay behind.
Why are you acting so heroic all of a sudden? Are you some kind of idiot?
Lotus was the first to speak. That in itself was a little strange. She'd reacted much differently when Ace had volunteered.
No, I am completely against this. I'll be goddamned if I'm gonna have to owe you for getting out of here.
Nice. Nice.
I'm against it too. I didn't want to leave Ace behind, and I don't want to leave you either.
I don't like that idea. There's gotta be other options.
Other options.
I disagree as well. I can't say I care much for you being the hero.
Well, there you go, Seven. Proposal denied. Clover's right. There's gotta be a better way than this.
So he made some noise that was somewhere between a derisive snort and a cough. Nice.
Doesn't make any sense.
He was doing his best to pretend that they were making a foolish decision, but Junpei could see the twinkling of water at the corner of Seven's eye. That was when Santa spoke.
Whoa, hold on a minute. I haven't said anything yet.
What? Until then, Junpei hadn't realized that Santa had stayed quiet for the whole discussion of Seven's fate. Something in his voice made Junpei uncomfortable. Here we go.
Agreeing? You want to leave him here?
Santa shook his head.
Nah, I'm against it. I don't want to leave Seven here alone.
Then I don't see how it matters.
I said alone.
Huh?
I said I don't want to leave Seven alone.
There was a dull shine in Santa's eyes. Oh, this ain't good. They were cold and hard. Junpei felt himself shiver.
What the hell are you...
What? You don't get it? I can't leave just one person. I need 2 more.
Really?
3 people, including Seven. I'll be leaving behind 3 people. That's my proposal. No. Those are my orders.
Wait, what?
What do you mean, orders? What the hell makes you think you can order us around? Who the hell's gonna listen to you?
You all will. In 3 seconds, you won't have a choice.
What?
One second.
Three, 2, 1.
Santa was so fast, Junpei could barely see him. When he moved, it was almost like watching a dance. His feet moved like lightning. He spun and... he had June. I think we're... no, we're still...
See? I told you.
His lips curled into a cruel, mocking smile.
What?
Shudder traveled the length of Junpei's spine. His chest froze and he could feel his breath go stale in his lungs. Nothing made sense. Junpei felt as though his head were about to explode. Santa's sudden change in attitude, saying that he needed 2 more. The gun in his right hand, a revolver. Santa had grabbed June from behind and pressed what Junpei's shaken brain identified as a revolver roughly against her temple.
Why? What the hell is that?
Where on earth had Santa possibly found a gun? Junpei's questions roared in his mind, but his mouth refused to ask them. Seven spoke almost as though he had sensed Junpei's confusion.
Guns from the other room. What room? One of the rooms behind door 6. I should have known he was gonna do this. I should have taken the gun.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Well, it's too late now, fat ass.
Hey.
Damn it.
Mixture of fury and frustration twisted Seven's face, and he glared at Santa. Santa, for his part, didn't so much as flinch. The corner of his lip twitched into a slightly wider smile. Then the smile faded and he began to move. He walked backward, dragging June with him. Before long, his back was resting against the door. On the wall next to him was the red. Put his hand on the scanner panel quickly and then forced June to do the same.
Now, time for you to start following my orders. Ace, Lotus, congratulations. I've chosen you to come with me. Put your hands in the red.
That was what Santa had meant when he said he needed 2 more.
Hey, you deaf? I gave you an order.
He glared at Ace and Lotus. They stayed frozen like deer caught in headlights of an oncoming car.
Fine. I didn't want to waste any bullets, but you guys just don't get it.
No sooner were the words out of Santa's mouth than his hand twitched. And a gun roared. A second the floor exploded, scattering wood splinters across the floor. A thin plume of smoke snaked out of the hole in the floor. There could be no doubt the gun was real and worked.
He really shot it? But why? Santa, why are you...
Clover's voice spoke of betrayal and disbelief.
Santa, I thought you were one of us. I thought we were friends.
What?
You knew about the leaf words and the 4-leaf clover.
Santa's cheek twitched almost
The
imperceptibly.
hell is that shit? I've got no idea.
You're lying.
Shut up. Just shut up, you stupid bitch. You want me to put a bullet in your fucking head?
Flecks of spit flew from Santa's mouth, his face twisted with rage. Clover recoiled, her eyes wide. When she spoke, her voice was very small. He snorted, then shook his head vigorously and turned to face Ace and Lotus.
All right, assholes. What are you still standing there for? Get over here and scan those bracelets. I don't have all day. Oh, what's the matter? Your hearing's starting to go? Going
Alright. They couldn't move. June's face was pale behind Santa's arm. Her eyes were wild, and her chest moved with every quick breath like an animal cornered by a predator. Junpei's mind worked furiously. What were they going to do? Then he realized something. There was nothing they needed to do. There was nothing to debate. June's safety was the first priority. That much was obvious. Doing as Santa had commanded meant that he would be safe from at least 2 threats. She wouldn't be shot, and she would leave the ship alive along with Santa, Ace, and Lotus. There's only one thing for Junpei to do.
Only way.
He turned to Ace and Lotus.
Please, go.
Huh?
No way.
Jumpy, what are you saying? If you stay here, you're going to be stuck, Jumpy. And so will Clover and Seven.
I know. You don't need to worry about us. We'll figure something out. Right, Seven?
Right. You just leave it to us. It's gonna piss me off to do what Santa says, but...
Don't worry about me either. There's still something I have to take care of.
No, no, you can't! Ace, Lotus, don't come over! Don't worry about me, please!
Junpei walked around behind Ace and Lotus. He gently placed a hand on each of their shoulders and pushed them toward the door. They almost stumbled, then righted themselves and took another step, and another. They turned around and Junpei nodded.
all right.
Fine.
Ace and Lotus turned around again and walked slowly toward the door where Santa was waiting for them. After what seemed like an eternity, they stopped in front of the door marked 9. Santa smiled.
All right. Now let's get those hands on the scanner panel. What's the holdup? What? You think I'm fucking around here? I don't give a shit about this girl. The red doesn't need a person, you know? All I need is the bracelet. You get it? Good. Now put your fucking hands on the scanner. I'm not gonna say it again.
He shoved the revolver harder against June's head, and she winced.
Fine.
Ace sighed, defeated, and placed his hand on the scanner panel. Lotus went next. Lotus glared at Santa and slammed her hand onto the scanner panel. 4th asterisk blinked on.
Good job. Now, Lotus, pull that lever. As soon as the door opens, you get your ass in there. Try anything stupid, and you know what happens, right?
Damn it.
Junpei could almost hear Lotus' teeth grind. The door slid open. Door number 9 opened at last. It opened with a low, powerful rumble. A drum roll to welcome the chosen few.
Good. Go.
Lotus and Ace walked through the door, their eyes furious but defeated. Santa waited until they were all the way inside and then hauled himself and June across the threshold as well.
Later.
After exactly 9 seconds, the door swung shut. A gust of air it created to cause the candles of the altar to flicker and die. The room fell silent. Junpei, Clover, and Seven had been left behind. Clover looked down at her hand and traced with her finger the faint blue veins that crisscrossed them. Seven shoved his arms into the front of his overalls and scratched at his stomach. No one spoke. Silence made the air feel thick and oppressive. Desperate for something, anything to occupy his mind, Junpei walked to the larger of the 2 9 doors. He stood in front of it and looked at the red. The red engaged. Alright. June. He moved to the smaller door. The red said vacant. The digital root of the remaining people was 7. 5 plus 4 plus 7 equals 16. 16 is 1 plus 6 equals 7. There's no possible way for them to open the door with a 9 on it. Junpei touched the surface of the door.
June.
Thought about June, about Akane Kurashiki. Was she safe? Was that was all that mattered to him. If she had escaped this horrible boat. That was what Junpei prayed for. Seven came up next to him. He pulled off his hat, scratched his head inside.
So, what do you want to do, Junpei?
What do you mean, what do I want to do? What can we do?
Seven opened his mouth to respond when a noise echoed through the room. Someone was pounding on something vigorously. It wasn't mechanical. It was certainly human. Junpei and Seven looked at one another.
What the hell is that?
Shh, quiet.
Clover motioned to Seven to be quiet. She put one finger to her lips and closed her eyes in concentration. The three of them listened, trying to determine where the sound was coming from.
Could it be?
Hey, I think it's coming from this coffin.
You're right.
Let's open it.
But how?
What are those muscles for? For show?
You're telling me to force it open?
Just shut up and try!
Seven and Junpei grabbed a hold of the coffin. They tried to get a good grip with what little purchase they could find, and pulled with all their strength.
Damn it!
It won't even budge.
There was some sort of keypad attached to the coffin. The purpose would not have been difficult to determine. Their eyes were almost immediately drawn to it.
Another one?
Yeah, looks like it.
Do you think we have to put in the right password or it won't open?
I think so.
The noise wasn't stopping. In fact, it was getting louder.
Whoever or whatever's inside this thing wants out. And now.
I know that. But how?
Without a passcode, I don't think there's much we can do.
You couldn't even tell how many numbers the passcode had needed to
Isn't
be.
there a hint somewhere?
Well, let's look for one.
Fortunately, there didn't seem to be anything near the coffin. Clover ran to examine the pews, and Seven investigated the desk, but they turned up nothing.
There's nothing here.
Not making this easy, are they?
The sound still wouldn't stop. It was a noise that belonged in the room.
What's the passcode? What am I supposed to do? How can we figure it out? I need something.
The world blinked. Suddenly there was a voice inside of Junpei's head. Truth had gone, truth had gone, truth had gone. Right, left, right, left, right, left. And now the truth is asleep in the darkness of the sinister hand.
Wait, what the hell was that? That voice?
Junpei was utterly and completely baffled.
Huh? What?
What's up?
Seven and Clover ran over to him, but Junpei didn't know what to tell them.
Huh?
If he told them he'd heard a voice, they'd laugh, or worse, think he was going insane. So all he said was,
Nothing.
one second. He cleared his throat a little too loud and looked pointedly down at his bracelet. There were a pair of small buttons protruding from either side of it. Junpei. He pressed the buttons. Right, left, right, left. That was it. Eight numbers blinked on and then off on the display. Junpei checked one last time. 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1.
1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1.
Huh?
Huh?
Hey, what the hell were those numbers?
Oh my gosh, are those?
Junpei didn't answer. He simply walked straight to the coffin. He knelt down in front of the keypad, running over the numbers in his head so that he wouldn't forget.
14383421. 14383421.
With trembling fingers, he punched them in. That was all of them. He punched the E button. There was a moment of complete silence. And there was the sound of the coffin lid unlatching. Someone sat up out of it.
No way! Why are you...
Oh? Is that you, Clover? I apologize for worrying you. Snake!
You? Why?
Junpei? And Seven? Is that you? Is everyone else there as well?
Just like Rip Van Winkle.
Jeez.
Junpei and Seven shared a wry smile. Clover's eyes were filled with tears.
You're back!
With a cry of joy, she leapt into Snake's arms.
Chet, my body's still a little weak.
Oh, you're back!
Clover looked like nothing so much as a lost child who had finally found her home. She cried and cried and cried. Her eyes were red, her nose was running. She hiccuped and gasped as if she were about to begin hyperventilating.
You're back! You're really here!
Her voice was happy but almost desperate, as she feared he would disappear again if she stopped talking to him. Tear after tremendous tear rolled its way down her face. Her small arms strained as she clutched Snake's body as tightly as she could. Perhaps she had to convince herself he was real. Perhaps she was worried he would be gone the moment she let go. Perhaps she simply didn't know what else to do.
You're back!
Come now, what's gotten into you? You're acting as though I've returned from the grave.
Not as though you did! I really thought you were dead!
Huh?
You jerk! Idiot! Idiot!
Clover broke into sobs so great she could no longer talk. It was a touching reunion between brother and sister. Even though Junpei knew they had little time, every minute they waited was a minute they wasted. It felt cruel to pull them apart. Junpei and Seven sat down on one of the pews, waiting for Clover to calm down before explaining to Snake what had transpired.
I see. I believe I understand things rather well now, thank you. In the shower room, there is a dead body wearing my clothes. Because of that, you thought that I was dead, correct?
He had quickly and neatly summarized the events of several hours.
Yeah.
Junpei nodded.
You also discovered a corpse in the captain's quarters, and Santa turned on you here, in this room. Do I have it straight?
Yep.
Well, the dead body in the captain's quarters is a surprise.
Sorry, there wasn't a good time to tell you.
Don't worry about it.
Well then. I've got a pretty decent idea of what happened while I was indisposed, but
He is wearing his bracelet.
it's still something of a mystery who did all this, and why. The corpse in the shower room that looked like me, and the corpse in the captain's quarters. Why were they killed in the way they were?
You don't know?
No. Why would I?
The guy in the shower room. We don't know who he is, so let's just call him Mr. X. Anyway, this Mr. X is wearing Snake's clothes, but you're wearing some kind of weird robes. That means someone took your clothes and put them on Mr. X. We need to figure out who that was.
I apologize, but I have no idea who might have done this to me. I only just now woke up. I was unconscious during all the events you just described to me.
They must have undressed me and changed my clothes during that time.
When were you knocked out?
When we split up to look for the red.
Where did they get you? Do you remember?
It was a small room in one of the hallways on C deck.
What happened?
The same thing that happened to every one of us when we were abducted. A canister releasing some sort of gas was thrown into the room. I believe the gas is some sort of incapacitating agent.
Then that means it was...
Zero.
Looks that way, huh?
There's nothing else I have to tell you. When I woke up, I was in this coffin.
Junpei crossed his arms and thought.
Why?
Why?
Why did Zero make Mr. X wear Snake's clothes? How would that benefit Zero? I don't get it. What the hell does any of it mean? And I have no idea how I got the passcode for the coffin either. Truth had gone, and truth had gone. Where did those words come from? Why did I feel compelled to push the buttons on the bracelet after hearing them?
Seven had asked him about it while they waited for Clover to finish crying. He had no answer for him, and he still
All I
didn't.
know is my fingers moved on their own. It was like I did it subconsciously. I don't get it. What the hell does any of it mean? Also, Snake and Clover have been subjects in a similar experiment 9 years ago.
The ability to access a morphogenetic field is affected by a couple of things. The first is epiphany, and the other is danger. And someone did actually die. A girl. Her name was...
There had been another experiment conducted on this same ship 9 years ago. And a girl had died during it. Morphogenetic field theory. The two murders. Switching clothes. The Nonary game.
And whatever strange thing was happening to Junpei himself. But as he struggled through them, Junpei began to realize something. There was something that tied all of them together, and the point connecting the dots.
Zero. He's the ringleader. The person who trapped 9 of us on this sinking ship. Zero should know everything. If we can uncover Zero's identity, all of our questions will be answered.
Who was Zero? Junpei had beginnings of a theory. Only could test it. Or perhaps.
At any rate, we'll have plenty of time to decipher the details later. For now, it is of utmost importance that we escape. Junpei, it was 4:30 the last time you checked the clock, yes? That means we have less than an hour. We must hurry.
Hey, how are we gonna get out of here?
Isn't that obvious? Through the other number 9 door.
Oh yeah, you're right. With Snake, we can open the door.
Don't tell me you hadn't figured that out.
As they sniped back and forth, Junpei glanced at Snake's left hand. He was wearing a bracelet with the number 2 on it.
Come on, you gotta tell me these things.
I, assumed you'd figured it out.
Forget it. Let's just get going.
7 stomped off toward a smaller number 9 door. Clover, Snake, and Junpei followed. 7 quickly laid his hand on the red. An asterisk appeared on the screen. Junpei and the others followed suit and laid their hands on the scanner panel. Soon there were 4 asterisks on the screen. 7 glanced at them and laid his hand on the lever of the red.
Alright. You guys ready to go?
Yes.
Yep.
Junpei paused for a moment.
Not yet.
Huh?
Before we go in, I'd like to check something.
You want to check something?
Yeah, but before I do, 7, could you pull the lever? I want to make sure we can verify with just the 4 of us.
What do you mean? We don't need...
Just do it, alright? But if the door opens, don't go in yet, okay? Please, this is really important. I really need to check this, okay? Work with me here.
Junpei looked directly into 7's eyes. The older man looked back for a moment and nodded.
Fine.
Someone pulled down the lever on the door 9. Pulled down on the lever and door 9 creaked open. Then they waited. 6, 7, 8. After 9 seconds, the door closed.
Alright, that means the 4 of us can go into door 9.
So, we knew that already. It's obvious.
Obvious. Yeah, you're right. It is. Now, what happens if we add Zero's bracelet?
What?
Zero's bracelet?
Why don't you take it out, Clover?
For a moment, Clover looked surprised, but then she recovered quickly and stuck her tongue out at Junpei.
So you did know I had it. I picked it up because I thought it might be useful sometime.
She reached into one of the pockets of her voluminous jacket and produced the bracelet. Junpei took it from her and turned to 7.
This was on the left hand of the corpse in the captain's quarters. If you look at it, you can see it's got a 0 on the face. Just to make this a little easier to talk about, I'm gonna call the guy we found dead in the captain's quarters, Cap. Then I should be able to open door 9 with just me, Clover, and his bracelet. Though the big question is, if Cap is the mastermind of this game, would he really put one of these bracelets on? Anyway, let's just give it a shot. Clover,
Okay.
now the captain's bracelet, and pull the lever.
However, the door didn't open. Threads display read
I
error.
knew it. Now, what does this tell us?
Maybe the bracelet has to be on your wrist in order for it to work?
No, that's impossible. Did you see how the panel showed a 3rd asterisk when I scanned Cap's bracelet? Whether or not it's on your wrist doesn't matter. All you have to do is put the bracelet near the panel for it to register.
7 waved his bracelet in front of the scanner panel. Sure enough, a single asterisk appeared on the red.
Looks like you're right.
See? So what does that mean? There's only one possibility.
That bracelet isn't the number 0. Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Then what number is it?
Let's find out.
Junpei. 6, 13. 12. See, I know it's 6. I just gotta find out which. Do the math here. So. 12.
Let's try 7, me, and Cap. If this combination opens the door, then Cap's bracelet is number 6.
Hey, it opened! The door opened!
What? Why? What does that mean?
Both Seven and Clover seemed rather shaken as they turned to look at Junpei for answers. Door slid heavily shut. Junpei raised an
Isn't it
eyebrow.
obvious? Cap's bracelet is number 6.
But doesn't it say 0?
This isn't a 0. The symbol on here isn't a number 0. It's a letter O.
Oh.
Whoa, wait a minute. I don't get it. I mean, we figured out that Cap's bracelet is 6, right?
Yeah.
Does that mean there are 2 people with 6s?
Before Junpei could answer, Snake spoke up.
There is most likely only one person with a 6.
But I don't get it. What about June?
Well, this is only an educated guess, but I think June's number was never 6 to begin with. Her bracelet was flipped. In other words, June's real number is
9.
That seems the most likely.
Then all this numbered door stuff was just a load of crap?
Why would you say that?
Because if June is 9, then the numbers wouldn't match up.
Clover grabbed Junpei's notebook and began to write
Here,
furiously.
look.
Junpei leaned over to look at it.
List of all the numbered doors June's gone through.
I'll let you know what I'm writing, okay, Snake?
8 plus 8 is 16.
And that's everything. I wrote down which door she went into and with whom. And I wrote what all the numbers were. So if you switch 9 in wherever there's a 6, the numbers don't work. If the digital root is 7, then you can't open door 4. If the digital root is 2, then you can't open door 8.
Clover, do you notice anything interesting on that list?
What do you mean?
You're talking about 3, right?
3?
Santa's always in the room with her. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
What about it?
That's quite simple, really. You told me that the first time you came to this room, Santa was the first to refuse to leave June behind. Now, doesn't that beg the question why? Why would... The answer is easy. Because Santa can't open door 9 with only 7 in Lotus. Of course, there's only one reason for that. His number isn't actually 3. Santa's real number, 7? Would you be so kind as to modify my sister's equations?
Yeah, sure.
7 took the pen from a confused Clover and began to adjust her calculations.
This is what you were getting at, right, Snake?
He read out the changes he'd made. When he finished, he looked at Snakes. Snake smiled.
Thank you. That is exactly right, 7. Santa's true number wasn't 3. It was 0.
No way. Santa is 0?
And June was 9, not 6. Conversely, Santa was 0, not 3. +3 and -3, they cancel one another out. Nothing appears out of order.
Santa was still playing by the rules of the Nonary game this whole time.
Precisely.
So you're saying Santa planned this whole thing?
I'm not sure if he acted alone or not. But I think it is safe to conclude that he is 0. If my hypothesis is correct.
Clover bit her lip. She seemed to be having some difficulty believing her brother's explanation. Junpei remained silent and in
Snake's
thought.
hypothesis. Something doesn't seem right. June's bracelet being flipped. Even if that were possible, that would mean there are 2 number 9 bracelets. And if that's the case...
All right, that's enough talking. Let's go. It's high time we went through that door.
Door 9 opened. They looked through.
It's right there.
The dead was directly in front of them as they came through the door. Quickly they scanned their bracelets. The detonator stopped.
Oh.
After pausing for a moment to catch their collective breath, Junpei and his companions headed down the long hallway in front of them.
All right, let's keep going.
At the end was a set of stairs leading down into the ship.
I think these stairs go to the bottom deck.
They leaned out and looked over the side.
Let's head down.
After deciding it was safe, they headed down the stairs. Before long, Junpei and his companions found themselves on the bottom deck. They turned and left into another hallway, at the end of which they found another door. Yeah. There we go. Man, okay, I may have to chop this up a little more.
Hey, it's a...
Of course, there was a symbol engraved over the keyhole. It looked like the sort of harpoon one would use to hunt fish, with the kind with 3 prongs, a trident. Snake traced the shape of it with his fingers.
This is the Neptune symbol. There must be a key around here somewhere.
Neptune key. I only have the Uranus key card.
Clearly it wasn't going to open this door.
It's a different planet. Plus, it's the wrong kind of key.
Let's turn around and go back for now.
Yeah.
After examining the door for a few more minutes, they gave up and headed back the way they'd come.
Hey, another door.
A little more searching, they found a metal door.
And a card reader this time.
Symbol was engraved into the card reader.
It's the Uranus symbol.
This is the place.
He muttered to himself and slid the card through the reader. It beeped once and the light on it turned green. Junpei, Clover, Snake, and Seven looked at one another, nodded, and stepped through. The room they found themselves in was full of books.
Wow! It's totally full of books!
It's totally full of books.
There's so many. I don't know where to look.
Yeah. Yeah. It looked remarkably like a library. Not the sort of library where large numbers of people came to read books. More the sort of library that was simply a place to store books. He felt a little overwhelmed by the sheer number of books, but Junpei did his best to speak with authority.
Alright, if we want to get through that door out there, we need the Neptune key. I say we split up and look for it.
Okay.
Very well.
Sure thing.
Good. Let's get started then. We don't have a lot of time. Hurry.
Alice sleeps in a small chamber past the forest of knowledge. As he began his search for reasons he didn't fully understand, Junpei felt those particular words float through his mind. Seek a way out. Alright, I forgot how much how long this ending sequence was. So I will cut it here and pick this up next time. Alright. See y'all next time.